Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Gamer Geeks Radio. This is Guys Night. I am Travis. How you guys doing? Tonight we have a special guest with us, Brian Parker. He is the author of Nash and some other great books. Nash, go ahead, Brian. Tell the listeners a little something about yourself.
Well, like you said, I'm Brian Parker, and I'm the author of. I've got 9 books out right now. 5 of them are available for purchase right now, and then 4 of them are will be released soon from Permuted Press. So I've got quite a few books out right now.
Um, okay. I'm supposed to be doing an interview, and I'm supposed to be interview and ask you questions, and your book's about zombies.
Yeah, well,
Nash.
yep. Nash is about zombies. It's a
Nash is about zombies.
post-apocalyptic. Yep, and it just depends on which book you are talking about, because I have several books in multiple genres. So Nash is actually book 1 of my Washington Dead City series, and that will be re-released by Permuted Press in February of 2016. So there's Nash, Rend, and Sever, and those 3 are already written. And then in May of this year, Enduring Armageddon will come out, and that is a post-apocalyptic story that does not have zombies in it. And then some of the other books that I have that are currently out. Origins of the Outbreak is a zombie apocalypse novel. Battle Damage Assessment is just a straight military fiction. No fantasy, anything like that. It's just military fiction. The Collective Protocol is an urban fantasy. And then I've also got a kid's book out there called Zombie in the Basement. So.
Okay. All right. Zombie in the Basement.
Yep.
I've been to. So I have to do my research. I have to do my research on. The person I'm about to interview. I have to do my research, and
Yep.
It's not like kids trying to survive the zombie apocalypse, right?
No. So Zombie in the Basement is actually. We good?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Zombie in the Basement is actually about a, a zombie who lives with a family, and he's a kind of a social outcast. Okay, obviously. Um, and he gets bullied and picked on by the other kids in school, and the family helps him through the tough times. And so basically, the premise behind the story is acceptance of others. So it's we we keep getting
Yeah.
that feedback.
Yeah. That little ping.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get it too. I don't.
Okay. Yeah. So, anyways,
I,
the story
we're
it's
still
the story
good.
about acceptance. So.
Okay. Um. And I. I. hmm. There was a posting that you had on your website, brianparkerauthor.com,
Mhm.
and on the website you were talking about how it was a particular
Hey, Travis,
author.
hold on. I don't know if you can hear this, but all we're doing now is replaying the beginning of the show.
Oh, you talking about on the YouTube?
Is it?
If we're talking about the YouTube feed is always
Oh, there we
slow.
go. There we
I
go.
think, I believe.
Sorry.
Um, I'm not even on the feed like at all. I apologize. uh,
No, now that I figured that out, we're good to go.
okay. Um, it was an author that you had said that you had read a book about zombies, and there was a kid dying in the book. It was a while ago, so I don't know if you remember it, but it was on your website. You had written that basically the author had gone into too much graphic detail about a child dying in the zombie book that he made. You remember that?
Right. Yeah. And my thing is I have kids, and that really it plays into it a little bit, but it really I think it's just kind of me. Um, in a hypothetical zombie situation or zombie apocalypse situation, yeah, you understand that kids would obviously not do well. But as a parent and as a the way I was raised, I just don't want to read about kids, getting hurt and injured and stuff like that.
Right.
And I'm an active duty Army guy, and I've actually seen that stuff in real life as well. And so it's not something I want to write about or really read about. And if people feel they need to write about that to further their story, then that's on them, and that's certainly them as an artist, how they feel they need to tell their story. But I just won't do it.
Right.
I think that's what you're talking about, that post.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what it did was it led me to, because I also have kids. And I sit down with my kids and we play. Well, I play zombie games. I play all the zombie games. Zombie survival, and then like little bug out survival tactics and all that stuff like that. Being like an actual survivalist, like try to practice that. I try to instill that into my kids, and not. I will instill that into my kids. My kids are really young right now. They don't understand what's really going on. But my daughter, she understands, zombies. She understands a gun, and she understands death. She understands that. Being as young as she is, she understands that. I'm kind of proud of her for that. But what I was going to ask you was, the media nowadays are seeming a lot more graphic about how kids are portrayed in a post-apocalyptic world, and you have different outlets. I'm not just talking about books, but I'm also talking about like television and actual internet memes and all that stuff like that, and where you have kids either being turned as zombies or they already are zombies. But how is it that you break away from writing about something that's so real as a kid becoming a zombie without having a teenager become a zombie or an adult become a zombie? I feel as an adult's becoming a zombie, that's something that's everybody's seen. Right. A teenager becoming a zombie, that kind of hurts. That kind of hits a nerve every now and then. But when a kid dies on any facet, whether it be a book or being on social media or being on television, like I'm referring to The Walking Dead, because The Walking Dead was the first television show I've seen where they made a kid a zombie and then killed them.
Right.
On national television. And how is it that as an author you break away from trying to include that into your books and into your actual writing style without giving that like shock and awe like presence?
Well, and that's exactly why people do why Hollywood does that, and why authors do that, is they do it for the shock value. People think that if they can take it to that next level and they can gross people out, then people are going to remember them, and they're going to remember that scene from The Walking Dead, and I think it was like season 1, so maybe they did their job, but I just really don't think that I have to do that in my stories, so I will. In my stories, if I introduce a child, that you can pretty much guarantee that child will either exit stage left and just never be heard from again, or they'll survive and they'll be one of the survivors. I think you can craft the story, to have survivors, and they can be changed. The children can be changed based on what has happened around them, without including them and making them, and killing them off, or like maiming them or anything like that.
Right. How is it that you decide, being an author, when you sit down and you write, how do you decide which characters have basically outlived their usefulness to a story and they just, basically come to an end?
Well, I'm not an outliner. I've never been an outliner, so I kind of, I have a general idea of where the book starts and a pretty good idea of where the book's going to end, and I write and I get surprised as I go along myself, and as I write, sometimes the character who I thought was going to be central to the story, they're not necessarily central to it anymore, and I can either something can happen to them, or they can just move on to something else. But But as far as just the who, how I decide what happens to the characters, I really just look at them as a reader, because I was a reader long before I was a writer, obviously, and I think people want to see things that happen realistically, and that's kind of one of the hallmarks of how I write is I try to write things realistically. So if you know the guy's not always going to get the girl, and people are not always going to survive, people are not always going to die,
Right.
So I try to just write as realistic. I mean, dealing with the zombie apocalypse, got it. That's not a realistic thing, but
Right.
uh, another author friend of mine, Steve Woods. We've actually discussed quite a bit about like the realism and the lack of realism in Hollywood and in books. Like Americans, we believe that a fist fight can last for 30 minutes. Because that's what the movie shows you, and that's what the book shows you. But anybody who's ever been in a real fight, or even in a gunfight, if you've ever been in that case as well, that it's pretty quick. Things
Yeah.
things go pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Americans are just not. We just don't really understand, realism. So a lot of people have talked to me about, well, what's this? Why did this happen? It's like, well, think about it. If this was happening in your real life, do you think this would happen, or do you think it would happen some other way? And after like kind of like coaching them through it and talking through it, they're like, that was what would really happen in a real situation. So anyway, so that's where I come from. I try to write, as realistically as possible.
On your okay, well, I have to do research. So Amazon. I went to Amazon to look up all your creative works,
Mm-hmm.
and you have one here called Collective Protocol. And
Yeah.
on your website, you said that you did not like the cover work for Collective Protocol. Why is that?
Well, for the initial version of it, I did it myself, and I really like the image itself. I do like the image that I created originally. However, I mean the sales were not that good, and it didn't really portray the fact that it was a paranormal fiction, because the image that I did have on there was a picture of a tattered U.S. flag with a Canadian soldier over the front, because the story is about the Canadians trying to take over the United States through mind control. And so the picture, was really awesome, but it didn't tell readers that it's a paranormal story. So I actually
Okay.
commissioned an artist to draw a cover for me, and I released the cover about halfway through last month, and I love the new cover. It's awesome.
Oh man. Okay. Wait. Is that today? Are we supposed to do the Are we supposed to do the giveaway today? We're supposed to do the giveaway today. Uh, the giveaway. The giveaway. We also have a giveaway, which I thought that was going to be next week, not this week. Um, is that week? Um, on your Amazon, it also says that you're an avid Star Wars fan.
Yep.
Favorite line in the movies, and I already know that you're not talking about one or two. So,
No. Uh, I think probably the line from Empire Strikes Back where Yoda's like, do or do not, there is no try. I mean, that kind of like embodies like the active lifestyle that I also have. So I think that's kind of where we are with that. I mean, that's my favorite line from all the movies. And Empire Strikes Back is actually my favorite movie, anyways. Um,
right.
so
Um, who do you think shot first, Han or Guido?
Han, the original ones show it. I mean, the newly remastered ones, obviously they work it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But that was the cool thing about like the original is, you saw Han shoot and you're like, hey, he's not a good guy, you know.
No, he's not. He's
Yeah.
not.
So I mean, he's a scoundrel,
And I always like that about Star Wars, because Star Wars, now it's like, oh, Guido shot first. I was like, no, no,
Yep.
no, no. The bad guy, Han, is not a nice guy. Like he wasn't a
Yep.
nice guy. He is a he's an antagonist to the protagonist. To He's the lesser of two evils, basically.
Right.
And I've always enjoyed that in movies or when I read a book or anything like that. And I found that what I've really found out was that I've read a lot of books that most people haven't even heard of, and it kind of made me upset because apparently I've been reading like A-class novels ever since I was like a little kid, and I wasn't supposed to be because reading got shoved down my throat, and it wasn't like, oh, I didn't want to read it. It was like I already had stuff to read with summer reading, and now I have this whole other book I have to read.
Right.
And what I guess what really set it apart is having the ability to connect with a book. You know, able a book able to transport you and take you away from the your actual life while you're reading and you're flipping through the pages. I
It was
can't
the
do
original
I can't
television.
I can't do books on phone. I can't do books on tablet. I can't do that. I have to have an actual like hardback, paperback book like in front
Right.
of me because I can connect to it.
And
And I
there are a
want
lot of people that are like that.
and with certain with certain books, we have a different feeling, and when you're a writer, as you are, and you're an author, you have a different feeling about every different work that you've put out there. So what was some of your feelings going into when you made Nash and you made Collective Protocol and so forth?
So I'm sorry. What was the question again?
Like the feelings that you had when you was writing for Nash, like when you made Nash.
Oh, yeah.
What
I
was
mean,
your
the you never know what this, like I said, I'm not an outliner, so I never know what the story's gonna do, and sometimes the story comes across and it's kind of how I expected it, and sometimes it's like out of left field, and I get surprised by it. Um, the sequel to Nash, which is Ren, um, that will come out in March of 2016. The main character in that book, he makes an appearance in the first book, but he's not the main character in the first book. Um, but he changes over the course of the book, and he starts out as like this really hard nosed dude, and then he as time goes on, he retires from the CIA, and he starts to mellow out a little bit, and then I knew that I wanted him as my central character for the third book as well, so I had to do things to him to take him back to that level where he was before, because he had started to mellow out, and I knew that he wouldn't be able to be that that mean dude that would do what he needed to do, if I didn't have some really bad things happen to him in the second book. And I had zero clue. I had zero plans on doing this because the things that happened that caused him to be that way.
all
Um,
right?
I really wanted those things not to happen, but I knew that that's where the story needed to go. And so I think the emotions that you feel, because even as I wrote that book, there was the final scene in the book. Um, it actually made me get a little tight in my chest. You know, it's just, you think that you're the one writing it, you shouldn't be that way. As a reader or a viewer of a television show, yeah, you get it because it's unexpected to you, but it was unexpected to me as well. And so the scene that caused me to be like that, I was like, holy crap, that's a really great scene. And
Yeah,
it was just, you go through the whole range of emotions. Um, sometimes like the and sometimes it's boredom because you're like, all right, I'm nugging out. I've got to write this dialogue that I don't really want to write, but I know that it's important to happen later on. And so you go through from boredom to excitement to not fear, not so much, but I mean, so you just go through the whole range of emotions, and it's great. I mean, the experience of actually writing and finishing a book is just amazing. Even though I've written 9, when I finish each one, it's such a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction. You know.
Yeah, most definitely. Because that becomes your baby after that. It's like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
all the time and effort that you put into it, that becomes like your little brainchild. That's mine right
Yeah.
there.
And like a lot of times people don't understand how much work it actually is to write a book. Because I mean,
Oh,
we've
it's a
all
lot.
written we've all written papers, in college and in high school, 15, 20 pages, but you've got to take that thought for 300 plus pages, and make it coherent
Right.
and make it make sense, and that the one thing you wrote way back on page 5 still has to apply to page 310, so it there's just a lot of time and effort that goes into writing a book, and yeah, before I actually started writing, to publish and everything, I I was always like, man, I love reading, and it takes me like 3 hours to read, so it probably takes about 10, 12, 13 hours, to write a book. That's not the case. I mean, you're spending countless hours. I mean, I usually write for about
Yeah.
2 hours a night, at least, and it
Mm,
usually takes me about 5 to 6 months to write a book. So I mean, you just multiply that
mm,
out. It's just so many
right.
hours, just actually writing, and I mean, I type fairly fast, so it's just crazy.
It's like 60 words a minute is just not. It's not
Yeah.
counting how fast I can
No.
really type right now. It's like, oh
Well,
my
and that's
gosh.
well, in 60 words a minute, but that's not like, thinking things out and planning it out and going. And like I said, it might go quicker if I was an outliner, but since I just like kind of just like go by the seat of my pants, I think it's a little
Right.
bit harder sometimes.
But I mean, that's also a great writing style too, because outlining, that's what I used to do. I used to do outlining a lot because for screenplays and when I was writing for anime and I was doing all this other stuff, I had to outline every single last character. Like I needed, a detailed background of what this person has already been through, so I can
Right.
throw him into this, scenario, and I know where he's gonna be at. And now I've become this like, all right, well, off the top of my head, all right, scenery, this, and then next thing you know, I'm up here like writing dialogue. I'm like, I just jumped like six steps ahead. I should not be doing this right now.
Right.
But that's just with that's a little fan fiction. Fan fiction is always fun for the readers, always fun for listeners. Um,
You got to worry about fan fiction though, because you could be violating some unknown rule, in a universe that you didn't even know about.
yeah, I gotta. Uh, I mean, when it comes down to, I've never thought about writing a book. Like people tell me, it's like, yeah, you get that compliment. It's like when you talk a lot, you're like, hey, you should write a book, or you just have like some ideas that just
Right.
people need
Right.
to like be expressed, and it's like, yeah, you should write a book. Like, nah, I've college paper 300, and then citation. Oh man, did I get this from a book? Or, like just
Yeah.
mental knowledge notes. I'm just like, oh man, do I have to give this credit? Do I have to give credit to this person? Oh man, I know it's gonna come back and bite me in my ass one day. I'm gonna see it. They're gonna say something about it. It's gonna be tucked away in 150 words, and it's gonna come back. It's like, oh wait, he said this. He said this. This person is using my work.
Yeah.
Um,
And yeah.
one of your reviews that you have on Amazon says that you have a writing style that is similar to three big authors that I happen to know about a lot. Stephen King, Tom Clancy, and Don Brown, right? I believe it's Don Brown. But
Dan
what got
Brown.
me was the Stephen Dan Brown. Was got me was the Stephen King and the Tom Clancy. Did you happen to read that art? Did you happen to read that comment that was left?
Yeah. Yeah. I read all the reviews, unfortunately. Good and bad.
Right. I mean
No. Yeah. I
that's
mean,
that's what makes you a good writer.
yeah. The person who actually wrote that was actually another show that I did, couple shoot, I mean, almost 2 years ago now. or maybe it was a year and a half ago. Anyways, he was the host of oh goodness, it was Larry Dwayne presents. So he was the one that wrote that. So he took the book, read it, and then did the interview with me, and he was like, he was actually kind of floored, how about this about Nash, obviously. He was kind of floored about how the book progressed and how real it was. And that was one of the things that he said there was all these twists and turns that he wasn't expecting, and there's a pretty major event that happens about 40 pages into the book, and he's like, was this going to happen? Was he really going to do that? Oh, he did it. And so I think that's where he comes from, the Tom Clancy side. Is Tom Clancy would be very technical about his stuff, but then he would also throw in, the things that come out of left field, and you're like, whoa, that did not just happen. Oh crap, it did just happen. So
Oh yeah.
yeah. So, and I don't try to emulate anyone, obviously. I just try to write what people want to read, or what I think people would want to read. But I mean, that was a huge compliment, because I love all three of those authors. And whenever I read that review, he might have told me at first. Anyways, but whenever I heard that, it was just like, wow, that's awesome. I was kind of speechless. We were doing the interview just like this. I was kind of like, okay, awesome, thank you. But, and then
so, oh, go ahead.
well, and then like whenever I first published Nash, I actually had, I don't know, I don't want to call him a stalker, but someone that like followed my Facebook profile and like kept sending me messages and everything on my author page, kept sending me messages like, no, who are you really? Because you don't write like a brand new author. I think it's a pseudonym for someone else. I'm like, no, it's me, man. It's me. So that was kind of cool too, even though they got a little creepy. But
Trying to make sure the comments for the YouTube. Okay. All right. Man, trying to gotta refocus now, because I just went through like my phone up here just yelling at me of like, why won't you do this? Why won't you do this? Speaking of Tom Clancy is he was a really big author to me. Like I said, my father was into a lot of war games and all that stuff like that, and it just kind of just carried over to me. But Tom Clancy is an author that I really enjoyed growing up, reading his books without realizing what I was reading. I had to go back as an adult and reread those, because as a 13-year-old, 16-year-old kid, did not understand that at all. Like most of the books that you read from Tom Clancy, yes, they're tactful, but they also have like twists and turns.
right.
And being a 16-year-old kid, you might not understand those twists and turns. And to make Tom Clancy passed away recently, and he is supposed to. There's supposed to be another book coming out, and I know definitely he has a game coming out, which I'm really excited to play and be a part of, because it's his last one, and I just want to have my piece about Tom Clancy. But because I gotta talk about a little bit of gaming every now and then, little gaming news every here and there.
Yeah, of course.
Do you play games?
Unfortunately, I play a lot of Lego games right now on the Xbox. I got
Lego games are not bad.
No, yeah, I got a 5-year-old, and actually we were fighting, just trying to, right before we came on, because he was like, no, it's Friday night. We always play video games on Friday night. And so it's like, no, I gotta go do the interview. And
right.
So I was hoping y'all didn't hear him in the background a little bit. He was having a little bit of a meltdown. But no, yeah. So we play a lot of Lego Star Wars, Lego Batman, Lego Lord of the Rings. And just because, I mean, that for a 5-year-old, that's there is some animated violence and everything, but it's not, there's not like blood and guts and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then just like for me, yeah. And for me, like I play a lot of I'm playing a lot of XCOM right now, and then what's the other one? Borderlands. So
Which Borderlands?
the first one, yeah.
Okay.
It's yeah. I get a game and it takes me so long to play it because I don't play that often. So I'm playing
Right.
XCOM Enemy Unknown and then the first Borderlands. Um, in between writing and working, So,
Yeah. That's the life of an adult. It's work. My
yeah.
life is a little bit different. I work, game, interview, do this. Yeah, this is a never-ending process. But um, some interesting news for the viewers out there. There is in the world of comic books, Jason Momoa has been for DC Comics. Jason Momoa has been chosen, and you see him in outfit. He's nice and suited up, and he is Aquaman. I had told you guys that before, but people are acting like this is new information. I don't know why. Jason Momoa has been cast to play Aquaman for the DC live-action movies that are coming up. Um, Sony has decided to use the PlayStation as their go-to for equaling cash revenue, as it were. And there's rumors that in later of 2015 there will be two new systems for the Xbox One and PlayStation 4. There will be like a slim model that will be coming out, and also Mortal Kombat X, which comes out in April. I'm looking forward to this game. I want to play it. Spawn is going to be a character. It's been announced, it's been confirmed that Spawn will be a character in Mortal Kombat X. My feelings on that are basically, hasn't Spawn ever been in a Mortal Kombat game? I might be wrong about that, but I could have swore he was in Deadly Alliance. But I would have to go back and play Deadly Alliance in order to find that one out, because that was not like DLC. I thought that was like bonus content that you got with the game when you paid for it, but it wasn't like DLC because the DLC didn't exist in PlayStation 2 days. So, well, so Brian, that's mine. Yeah, I gotta get that out there. I gotta get that out there. We'll also be giving away a miniature Batman figurine. It's about this big. It's a wooden doll next week. That will not be this week. It'll be next week. And to get him, basically tune into the show. I will provide Batman trivia questions in order to obtain this little miniature doll. I want viewer participation, please. I beg for feedback. I beg for it. I'm pleading. Please, please, please. So I also want to know people's knowledge of Batman. And you can't Google, and like sitting up there trying to Google questions. Yeah, I want to make sure that you cannot find this information on Google. You gotta either be alive for when it happened or you have seen it. Are you a big Batman fan?
I like Batman. I never got into the comics. I don't read comics anymore, but I was a big X-Men, X-Force, and pretty much almost all the Image universe. And I know Image has pretty much gone the way of everything else. But like
Yeah.
most of the great writers and artists, went back to Marvel or DC, wherever they came from. Um, but yeah, I mean, I never got into the comics, but I've always loved the movies, and I loved we played the games and everything. I just for some reason never got into the comics.
Hmm. Oh, no comment. Okay. No comment there. No comments in the YouTube there. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. I can live with that. You have a book called Self-Publishing the Hard Way.
Yeah.
Could you
So
elaborate? Yeah.
Yeah, so right after I finished writing Zombie in the Basement, which is my kid's book, um, I went through the process of doing a wraparound, a case wrap cover, which is basically you take the cardboard stock of the book and you stretch out the image, or well, you design the cover so that it's pasted to the cover. It's a little bit different than like the standard book cover where you just you open it up and you have your cover on the front, your back on the side, and you have a certain width for the spine. Because the case wrap you have to include for the pasting of the and the overlap of the paper and all that stuff. But anyways, so whenever I got done with that, I was like, if there was a resource out there that told people how to do this, it'd be so much easier. And so that kind of started spinning my wheels about, well, there was a lot of stuff that I've screwed up, as I've been self-publishing, that if there would have been like a reference out there, for people that, to maybe look at how I made mistakes, how I overcame them, and some advice. And so that's kind of where self-publishing the hard way came in, and that's where the title is because it was the hard way because there is no one, one resource for people who want to self-publish a book. There's snippets and posts here online and stuff all over the place, and there are some books out there that if you paid 10, 15, $20 for, it would help you through the process. But most people don't want to spend that. So
Yeah.
I thought of this pamphlet-sized book. It's like 68 pages, so it's not that big. And again, just kind of take people from the very from all right, now your manuscript is finished, or your first draft of your manuscript is finished. What do you need to do from here on out? And so take people through, hey, get an editor. That's the number one thing I always tell people is you can't self-edit your own stuff. Regardless of if you were an English major, it doesn't matter. You always got to have a second set of eyes, and preferably someone who actually can edit for you. And then
Right.
also talk about like cover artwork, and then how to actually publish it and how to upload the files onto Amazon. I talk Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Smashword, and also Ingram Spark, because those four platforms, pretty much the four big platforms. And then there's CreateSpace for the paper, or the paperback version. But the every one of those platforms is totally different, and not always user friendly. So I talk about kind of these are what I found, these are how I did it, this is some of the mistakes I made, and this is how I fixed it, and then kind of we talk about how to get your name out there, how to start trying to market a little bit, then kind of the what's next. I wrote the book in December 2013, so it's about a year old, and I need to go in and update it because at the time I was solely self-published, and I was happy being self-published. But then Nash and Enduring Armageddon got picked up for publication from Bermuda Press. And I had kind of alluded to that a little bit at the end of that book. I was like, hey, so what's next? And I had talked to a friend of mine who had gone the same route. He was self-published and then actually got picked up by Bermuda Press as well. And did a quick little interview type thing with him. And just kind of to help people through the process. This is how you self-publish a book. If this is what you want, if you want to do it yourself, this is exactly everything you do. And a lot of people have picked it up. I give it away free, like every 3 months or so. I try to give it away for free. And people really seem to think there's a lot of good advice in there. And it's just literally it's because it's common. It's not common sense. It's speaking to people just like a one-on-one type thing, because no one wants to be preached at whenever they're trying to figure something out. So it's just like, hey, all right, I was an idiot. This is what I did, and this is how I got around it. That's kind of the premise behind it.
So, all right. Well, that's coming from real life experience there, though.
Yep.
And you're basically, if anybody that wanted to know how to basically self-publish themselves properly, they can go by your experience.
Yeah, and I think as humans, at least well, hell, myself, I learn more from my mistakes than I do from actually like doing something right the first time. Because you don't really, I mean, if you do it right the first time, yeah, you get it done, but it's just like, all right, I expected that. But if you are constantly banging your head against the wall, and then you finally overcome that, and you figure out what it is, then you feel a real sense of accomplishment. And you actually take those lessons and you remember them. Um, that at least I do.
I definitely
Some
agree
people
with you
some
on
people
that.
can be like, you're an idiot.
I No, I definitely agree with you on that. That's the only way that you'll actually learn is if you fall and you get back up and you keep trying. That is very important. Not just for that's not. I have things going on in the background next to me. It is kind of funny. Oh man. So ah anyway. Um for how much of um, how much of your life experiences go into your works?
Um, well, I've done 19 years in the Army so far, and so I think that definitely colors everything that I write, because I do go into it with the expectation of, well, with the knowledge of this is how guns really work, this is how artillery really works, this is what really happens whenever a nuclear weapon goes off, that sort of stuff. So a lot of people who write, you know, don't necessarily have that experience, and so you see that in books and movies that the average person, they don't really catch it, but as a military person, I'm like, God, that's just so not the way it would happen, or that's just really not true. And so that's where I go back to the realism part. Um, so I definitely think my experiences in life have definitely colored the way I write. Again, with the realism and wanting it to be as realistic as possible, even if it's not necessarily as exciting. Because yeah, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, that was an awesome 3-hour film of nothing but like flying fighting, but it's not true. It's not realistic,
It's
you
not.
know.
It's
So,
not at
and
all.
I mean, yeah. So, I mean, I just want people, whenever they read it, they know that hey, I've got almost 20 years in the Army. Just kind of seen some things. I've been to Iraq and Afghanistan. You've seen some real stuff. This is kind of what would go on. So
Oh yeah, most. Well, I don't. Nah, I'm not going. I'm not gonna. Nah, nah. And normally I would, but that's not. Nah. I'm not going that route tonight because of the fact of the matter is that the question I had in my head was relating to the whole biopic American Sniper, and I went into that like 2 weeks ago with Richard, and I really don't want to do that again. Like,
well, I've read the book. I haven't seen the movie. So
that's the thing about it is like I've read the book and I've seen the movie, and I'm just kind of like, mm, mm, okay. I'm just gonna leave that alone. I'm I'm gonna put that in a box. I need to chuck that somewhere.
well, I
No,
don't know
because
what
it's
I don't know what your question specifically with that one was, but I'll tell you that the Hurt Locker has nothing to do with reality. If you ever want to think about that. So, where that was like
no.
critically acclaimed and all that stuff for Hollywood, you know?
Oh yeah, I mean the lines in it were not even.
Yeah.
I think honestly, like my go-to military movie would have been of like Band of Brothers. Like I go way back. I go Band of Brothers, Saving Private Ryan. I shouldn't even say Saving Private Ryan, but Saving Private Ryan because I happen to like the actors that are in Saving Private Ryan.
Hmm.
Um,
Platoon.
it was um throwback movies. It's like Stalag 17. That's more of a campy, like happy movie. That was made back in the 50s. That dealt with like Nazi internment camps of how soldiers dealt with Nazi internment camps, basically. Um, But nowadays, they have like most of these military movies that are coming out. And speaking at like, I'm a civilian, haven't been in military action, haven't you know enlisted, all that stuff like that. Wanted to, but yeah. Seeing all these movies come out and hearing about them, but I also have friends that are, Marines, Air Force, Navy, Coast Guard. I have friends that have been there, and they're just like, dude, it's not how it is.
Yeah.
And my friend that just came back recently, he's a little messed up, but he he's working his way through it, and I'm proud of him for that. And I thank him every time I see him. It's like, dude, thank you. He's like, dude, you gotta stop thanking me. You got to stop thanking me. Like,
Yeah.
you got to stop. He's like, I can't stand that. Like, I can't stand it. It's like we went to the supermarket the other day, and he went in with his fatigues on and everything else like that. Like, goes in there, and basically we're just grabbing some milk, and because it snowed and all this other stuff here, he has, he got his training. He's got his PT gear on basically, and he's like, we're in the store, and just like people just like clapping and thanking him. I'm like, you see what I'm saying? That's why I can't go out with you. You just like, but yeah, he has his opinions about American Sniper, and I just like, okay, don't want to talk about that anymore.
Right.
Already talked about it. Don't want to talk about it again. But when it comes down to writing military works of whether they be a fiction or actual life, what's the, besides actual realism, to differentiate between fantasy and reality, how is it that the limit, that line to
What
draw
I
in that
think you
sand of
the
morality?
number one rule is don't let what you know that the public doesn't know get into print. Number one.
Right.
And that's we've had a spate of Navy SEALs that have kind of violated that rule quite a few times here recently. Um,
Yeah.
but I think just again, just going back to the writing a story that people want to know, because I don't write nonfiction stuff, so everything I write is off the top of my head, or researched, but like my military fiction book, Battle Damage Assessment. I was actually writing another book, and I was in Afghanistan this past year. I just got back in December, um, and so I was over there writing another book, and this story just kept pounding my head, and it's like, dude, you just gotta write this story, and it's a simple military story about a guy who enlists in the army, goes to Afghanistan for the first time, gets in combat, and kind of how he progresses, how he grows over time, and then he ends up getting a little bit messed up, and then working through the issues. And so the book follows him after he returns as well. And I throughout the book, I intersperse military humor because we like all sorts of stupid jokes. Um, there's a lot of things that we do in the military that most people, if they saw it in the regular world, would be like, what the hell is wrong with you people? But it's just you have these mind-numbing hours and days of boredom, so you just
Right.
have to intersperse with sheer like 30, 40 seconds of terror, or 3 or 4 hours, however you want to, whatever you want to talk about. Um, so we do stupid stuff just to keep ourselves sane, and so throughout Battle Damage Assessment, kind of talking, I write about how what he's doing and stuff, and then also, hey, let's have jokes on the bathroom stall, and so he has like a little war back and forth with people in the bathroom stall, like every 2 or 3 days he'll go back in there and insult their mom, or whatever. I mean, just back and
Right.
forth on things, um, and it's stuff like that, like all the little side humor things in there. Actually, I just was daily, just jotting down things I saw and heard while I was in Afghanistan and putting it in the book. Like one of the sections in there, you had two big gym rats, arguing about whey protein and how they thought whey protein came from a buffalo. It's literally what I heard while I was in the PX with these people. It's like, oh yeah, it's
Wow.
from a buffalo, so it makes you that much stronger. It's like, oh my God, this has got to go in the book. So, but it's simple stuff like that. I mean, yeah. So I like writing, military type fiction. Most of my books have a military element, even the ones that aren't military focused. They do end up, because of the genres I write in, like post-apocalyptic. Yeah, you're gonna find a weapon. You're gonna use it. And so you're gonna figure it out if you don't already know how to use it.
All right.
So things end up taking on a kind of a military theme every once in a while. But that's usually, besides battle damage assessment, that's not the central theme of them.
My internet officially. I don't. Nah, I can't. My internet currently stopped. Um, the the children's book.
Mhm.
The like you said, it's about dealing with indifference and tolerance and with the kids. What made you write that?
The uh, the reason why I wrote that book is I had just finished Nash, and we were actually out to dinner with my wife and my family, celebrating. I was like, oh yeah, your first book done, you know. And
Yeah.
my daughter, she was 5 at the time. She looked at me. She's like, well, I want you to write us a book, So that's where the impetus for starting a book came from. And the kids actually helped me through writing it. They helped me along, and kind of I would ask them, hey, what do you think about this? And they'd be like, no, I think you should do this. So it was really a back and forth with them. Um, and the kids actually really wanted the story to be like a rhyming story. And I got about halfway through it, and I'm like, I'm gonna shoot myself in the face. I can't do this anymore. So so I went
Good
in
thing Frozen wasn't out yet.
yeah. So we went in and,
Good
and
thing Frozen
re-edited it.
wasn't out yet.
But yeah, so the kids, certainly helped me along with that, and the title came from whenever I was living in DC and my family was in Charlottesville, just because my wife is active duty as well, so we were stationed at different places, and I was staying with this family, and I would leave before the kids ever got up in the day, and I'd get home usually after they were ready to go to bed, and so they always called me the zombie in the basement because I would be like kind of there and not really there, so I'd sleep and then go to work. So that's where the title came from. So, but yeah, the story just kind of developed and wrote itself. I certainly didn't mean to write it the way it did. I was actually trying to write like a fun zombie story, and it really
Right.
just ended up being, hey, this is a story about how this zombie is an outcast in society, and his family wants to help him, and so how the lessons of acceptance, and that, hey, regardless of what somebody looks like or how they act, they still have feelings, and so that's kind of where that all came from. And it really, like I said, I really was just trying to write like a Goosebumps type story, and that's not what happened at all, you know. So it's
Well, that's if I will need to pick up the zombie in the basement because I feel like my kids would, they they'll get a heck of they'll enjoy me reading that book to them.
yeah,
But
and as big
when it
as
comes
zombies
out,
are in popular culture, I think kids really like it. Like right before I went to Afghanistan, I personally think that the book is really for about age 2 to 3 to 10. And right before I went to Afghanistan, I got asked to go speak at a elementary school. So I went and read the book to a large group of 12-year-olds, and the school counselor was like, "No, trust me, I read the book. This is the perfect age for them. It's a perfect message." And so as I was interacting with these 12-year-olds, I really found out that they're growing and changing, getting ready to go into middle school because it was right before summer break. And she's like, that story about, words matter, and words mean things, and you can hurt people's feelings. That really is what they need to, one thing they need to take with them as they go into seventh grade. And so, again, whenever I was asked to go there, I was like, oh, this is going to be a tough crowd because they're 12, But it was good. I mean, they really enjoyed it, and it was very interactive and everything, and so it's got kind of a wider range than I thought. And then
Yeah.
my editor actually works with adults with disabilities, with learning disabilities, and she's purchased, shoot, I don't remember how many, but she's purchased several copies to work with adults who have like Asperger's and autism. And
Mm.
the book, they really enjoy the book as well.
Like I said, anything that basically teaches about tolerance, and especially in this day and age, which I find it still a little bit funny that we're still dealing with intolerance. It's like somebody's different than you, so what?
Yep.
Big
Who
deal.
cares?
But that, especially since kids are the cruelest. They
Yep.
kids are the cruelest. They can say some mean, hurtful stuff and really not know what they said. Like,
Exactly, and that's it. They don't know what they're saying.
and
Why are you so fat? Shut up.
right. They especially with games, and now that they have a lot more, I guess, more access to the world than you or I did growing up, because social media wasn't on like a cell phone that Xbox, PlayStation 4, even on the computer. They're more open to the world, and with them being more open to the world, they start to see more different people and different experiences and all that stuff like that. But to know that you're an author that still sat here, even though you didn't mean to it, but it still turned out like that, that that says something. And that book is going to wind up. It's going to be a fake, like Dr. Seuss. It's going to be like one of those books. Like
I
I
wish.
can see it. No, seriously, because if you have kids that like zombies, and you have kids that are dealing with bullies on a daily basis, and they're dealing with being picked on, and they're dealing with all this, their parents are going to go out there and buy that book. Like, if they know about it, they're going to go out there and buy that book, and they're going to read that book to them. They're going to understand, like, hey, you're not. It's okay to be different. It's okay that you do not follow that social media. It doesn't matter about that class or that society that you run in. It doesn't matter about that. It matters about you
Yep.
being your own individual person.
Yep. And that's what kind of what I lead to whenever I do speak to kids about it. I kind of use this catchphrase all the time. I'm like, it's okay to be different because how boring would life be if we were all the same, you know?
Yes.
And so that like really just kind of resonates with them. They're like, oh yeah, it would. So
Everybody little gray blobs of just matter. It's like,
yeah,
my thing is, I tell my kids all the time, it's like, yo, who sets the standard? Who tells you to be the same? That person doesn't allow you to set that standard. You
yeah,
be your own individual. You be the leader. You don't be the follower. You be the leader. If people want to follow you, let them follow you for the good reasons, though. Don't let them follow you for evil, like bad intentions or evil intentions. Because I talk to my kids about comic books, and there's a lot of adult themes in comic books, but at the
mm,
same time, there's things that I feel like kids should know growing up, and especially zombies, and people are scared. Oh man.
well, I mean,
Like, people are scared, especially when it comes down to post-apocalyptic stuff like
yeah,
that.
and
Like, people are really scared.
I think with that and why it's so big in popular culture right now, I think there's definitely a feeling that we can't continue down the road that we're going. Not that there's going to be a zombie apocalypse, and you see stuff like, oh, scientifically it could happen or scientifically it couldn't happen, back and forth. But something is going to happen. I mean,
Right.
just slow, gradual social decline. I mean, the people being fed up with, the Middle East, versus the West, and just something is going to happen. You know, that's the general feeling. Like you don't see too many futuristic movies. Like whenever we were kids, you know, you had oh, now I'm just drawing a blank. And you had like Running Man, and you had all these in Total Recall. You had all these things where the future was, yeah, it was kind of dark and everything, but
Yeah.
it was progressing. Whereas like look at the movies that are coming out now, it's all like, oh shit, society's gone to hell. You know, so it's like everything. You know, oh, we had to abandon Earth. You know, it's just,
Oh yeah.
I think, you know, just as a society and as a culture, we're like, you know, something's got to change. You know, I mean, we can't keep going the same way we're going. And you talked about tolerance. You know, I mean, we've been preaching tolerance for 200 years, and we're still doing it. So it's like, what's going on? You know, are we that incapable of change, or is it? I don't know. You know, so I think just there's a feeling that something's gonna happen. You know, we've got all these super bugs, like just at, was it Berkeley or UCLA just today? You know, there was some university hospital out in California. There was a bug that got released, and 200 kids were exposed to it. You know,
Yeah.
and it's just like you got these scientists in there, you know, fiddling around with stuff, you know, and I don't know.
It's like, oh man, just because I don't. I feel like it's gonna come to a point where I'm gonna want to just scaring the hell out of my kids about how much I like talk about it. It's like I don't talk about it a lot. It's like, well, I don't talk about it a lot. But what they see me like, you know, looking up online is like, oh, I'm looking up like, you know, a new breast sack here. I'm looking up like, you know, med kits here. It's like,
Yeah.
Dad, why are you looking for another med kit? Like, why do you need a med kit? I'm like, all right, first of all, having a med kit is good to have on hand because you
Yep.
and your sister are y'all are accident prone. You know. So, you know, me getting a med kit, that's not something I should like, you know. They're like, oh, why you getting this? Why you getting that? I'm like, oh my gosh. For me to explain this to you is like, I don't want to scare you. I don't want to like throw them in a world of panic, but at the same time, they sit there and they watch me play, you know, my Black Ops, and they watch me play my other games that I play, and they watch me play like they see me play like a fun campy game. They that's when they start to freak out. That's when they get worried. They're like, "Why are you playing this? Why?" I'm like, if it's got like a lot of colors in it, and they're like, if they get into it, they're like, "Why are you playing this? What happened to the Advanced Warfare? What happened to Far Cry? What happened to all these other games?" My daughter, it's funny because I was playing a racing game, and she's like, "Why are you playing that?" Like, because I get to drive a Mustang. That's
'Cause
why.
it's fun.
Like, right.
Yeah, it's not
But
all doom and gloom.
no, it's not. It's not. You know, it's definitely not. Um, I think we're supposed to be ending the show right now because it's 11:07 my time. Your time is probably
But just a little after 10.
ah okay. Um, trying to get in contact with Mary. Hello, Lady Rage, Lady Rage. Like I said, next week, Friday, we will be having a giveaway for the Batman figurine. It's coming. This is happening. Um, at first, we were supposed to put a name and a random generator and all that. I want the viewers to be involved. I want you guys to participate, and I want you guys to, you know, come with your Batman knowledge because this is what it'll be about. It's going to be easy. I'll give you an example of the first question. What was Bruce Wayne's parents' names? Write in the comment section. The first people that get it up there, they go on to the next round, and so on and so on. and it's going to be about 10 questions periodically through the show. And by the end, I should only have one person, and that's going to be the person that wins still, little Batman. Also on Ladies' Night, they will be giving away Chimchar. It's Chimchar, not Charmeleon or Charmander. It's Chimchar. Little fire Pokemon. That's a monkey. That was, I think, third generation? No, not third. Ooh, I'll say, I'll just do myself there. Fourth generation, I believe. It's fourth generation. Charmander. Yeah, fourth generation. I don't know. Misquoted me on that one. But all right. Anything you want to say?
No, I'd like people to be able to follow me on Facebook. Easy way to find me on Facebook is just www.facebook.com/Brian Parker author. And then if you guys want to be able to find out like where all my stuff is, just my Amazon authors page is www.amazon.com/author/Brian Parker. You know, that's where literally all my stuff is. You know, I've got a new book coming out in May, on May 5th. It's called Enduring Armageddon. That'll be my first book from Bermuda Press. And then Nash, Renda, and Sever will be coming out February, March, April of 2016. You know, so going places.
So you got those to look forward to. You got those to look forward to. And hey, everybody needs good reading material nowadays. Everybody does, especially in a book form, not in technology. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's our show. It's Guys Night. Good night.